The royal world is no stranger to drama. But this latest revelation has sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace and beyond. Carole Middleton reportedly lost her cool after discovering that Camilla had allegedly been bullying her granddaughter, Princess Charlotte. Whispers that once floated in hushed corners of royal gatherings are now exploding into headlines. So how far will Carole go to protect her beloved Charlotte? And what does this mean for the monarchy's image? Join us as we unravel the tension between Carole Middleton and Queen Camilla. The face-off. Carole rose from her chair with that quiet, confident grace that had always carried her through life and business alike. Without a word, she walked straight to Charlotte. Kneeling down despite the elegance of her designer outfit, she began picking up the scattered flowers with gentle care. "These are beautiful, sweetheart," she said, her voice clear enough for everyone nearby to hear. "You have such a wonderful eye for lovely things. And you look just perfect, like a little girl who's been having the most delightful time in the garden, exactly as you should be." She brushed a few stray leaves from Charlotte's dress, then stood, wrapping a protective arm around her granddaughter's small shoulders. Only then did she turn to face Camilla directly, her expression calm but unwavering. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Carole said, her tone even yet unmistakably firm. "Charlotte has done nothing wrong. She has behaved just like any happy, healthy child would at a family gathering." Camilla's eyebrows lifted in surprise. "I'm sorry, but I don't think you understand the standards we—" "I understand perfectly," Carole interrupted, something she had never done before with a member of the royal family. Her voice, steady and sharp, cut through the quiet of the terrace. "I understand that you have spent the better part of this afternoon criticizing and belittling my granddaughter, simply because she is an enthusiastic, intelligent child. And I am here to tell you, it stops now." The terrace fell completely silent. Even the birds seemed to pause their singing, as if listening. Catherine and William watched in stunned amazement. Carole Middleton, always careful to respect royal protocol, now faced down the queen consort with the fierce protectiveness of a lioness defending her cub. Carole could see Camilla opening her mouth, her voice taking on that familiar warning tone that had silenced many before. "I think you're overreacting to—" "No!" Carole's single word struck the air like a hammer. "I am not overreacting. I am responding exactly as I should, watching someone deliberately try to crush a child's spirit. Charlotte is 8 years old, bright, curious, kind, and well-behaved, and she is my granddaughter. I will not under any circumstances stand by and watch anyone make her feel small or ashamed for simply being herself." Charles had risen from his seat, moving toward them, visibly uneasy at the confrontation unfolding on his terrace. But Carole was far from finished. "I have spent my entire adult life building up children's confidence, not tearing it down. I have watched Charlotte grow and thrive under the love and encouragement of her parents, her grandparents, and her teachers. She is a remarkable little girl, full of promise, and she deserves to be celebrated, not constantly corrected or criticized." Camilla's carefully applied makeup seemed almost pale against her shock. "I was simply trying to help her understand proper behavior by telling her she's embarrassing the family," she murmured. Carole's voice remained controlled, but every word carried the weight of her conviction. "That is not teaching proper behavior. That is emotional manipulation, and it has no place in any family, royal or otherwise." So, what led to the confrontation? Was there any sign or warning? Let's find out. The excellent plan and early signs. The morning had started with a gentle, golden calm, the kind that hinted something special was about to unfold. Carole arrived at Windsor Castle just after 11, her eyes lighting up at the familiar, majestic sight. The centuries-old stone walls seemed to hum with history, and the gardens, trimmed to perfection, glowed in the soft morning light. She had walked these grounds many times before, yet the castle's grandeur never ceased to amaze her. But today, it wasn't just the castle that filled her with excitement. It was the thought of spending precious time with her beloved granddaughter, Charlotte, whose recent school achievements had made Carole's heart swell with pride. Catherine and William had already arrived, the three children trailing closely behind. George, brimming with energy and mischief, dashed across the castle lawns as though he knew every hidden corridor and secret nook of the ancient fortress. Louis, quieter but no less eager, clutched a tiny toy airplane, eager to show it to his great-grandmother. And Charlotte, sweet, clever Charlotte, radiated a quiet confidence, her eyes sparkling with pride over her latest accomplishments at school. By royal standards, the gathering was meant to feel informal and cozy. Camilla had thoughtfully suggested using the smaller oak room rather than one of the grand state halls, creating a warm, intimate atmosphere where conversation could flow easily. A lovely tea was planned for mid-afternoon, complete with Charlotte's favorite cucumber sandwiches and scones, freshly baked in the castle kitchens, filling the air with a comforting, buttery aroma. Carole spent the first hour catching up with Catherine and William, savoring every detail about the children's latest adventures and milestones. Charlotte had earned top marks on her history project about medieval castles, a fact that seemed perfectly in tune with the surroundings. She had also been chosen for her school's advanced reading program, a recognition that made Carole's heart swell with admiration. Watching her granddaughter, Carole saw a familiar spark. Not only was Charlotte beautiful, but she was sharp, curious, and full of life, with a hunger for knowledge that reminded Carole so much of Catherine at the same age. The day felt like a quiet celebration of family, learning, and love. A perfect blend of history, warmth, and the simple joy of being together. It was during the pre-launch gathering that Carole first sensed something was off. Charlotte was happily telling a story about her history project when Camilla came over to their small group. The little girl's bright, excited smile faded almost immediately, replaced by a more reserved expression. It was subtle, something many adults might not even notice, but Carole had spent years learning to read children's faces and emotions. She knew something had changed. "Hello, Charlotte, dear," Camilla said, her smile seeming warm. "I hope you're not getting too excited. We wouldn't want you to tire yourself before lunch." The words sounded harmless enough, even caring, but the tone carried a faint sharpness that made Charlotte's shoulders stiffen. Carole watched as her granddaughter's usual energy dimmed slightly. "I'm fine, Granny Camilla," Charlotte replied politely, her voice softer than before. "Of course you are, dear. Just remember to use your inside voice. This is a very old castle with very old walls." Camilla's laugh seemed genuine, but Carole sensed something underneath it, something subtle that set her instincts on alert. The shift was slow, almost invisible, so carefully done that anyone not paying close attention would have missed it. But Carole was paying attention. Her career had been built on noticing the little things, reading between the lines, and sensing when something wasn't right. How did the whole situation turn around? Let's take a closer look. Lunchtime drama and the turning point. The formal lunch took place in the castle's smaller dining room, a beautiful space with tall windows looking out over the gardens. The table was set with fine china and sparkling crystal, giving the room a feeling of elegant celebration. Charlotte sat between her grandfather, Charles, and her great-aunt, Anne, both of whom had always been kind and supportive toward her. At first, the conversation flowed smoothly. Charles was lively, telling stories from his recent royal engagements and asking the children about their hobbies and schoolwork. Charlotte basked in her grandfather's attention, sharing detailed accounts of her projects and activities. "Did you know, Grandpa, that Windsor Castle has been home to 39 monarchs?" Charlotte said proudly, clearly having memorized the fact for the occasion. "That's wonderful. You've learned so much about our family history," Charles replied warmly. "Tell me more about your project." As Charlotte eagerly explained her research methods and findings, Carole noticed Camilla's expression growing tighter. The Queen Consort was still smiling, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. When Charlotte paused for a breath, Camilla spoke up. "That's enough history for now, don't you think? Maybe the grown-ups should have a turn to talk." The words hit Charlotte hard. Carole saw her granddaughter's face flush with embarrassment, her bright enthusiasm disappearing like a candle blown out. Charlotte went silent, folding her hands in her lap and staring at her barely touched plate. Charles looked puzzled by the sudden tension, glancing between his wife and his granddaughter with concern. Catherine and William exchanged a meaningful look, but neither spoke. The silence stretched awkwardly until Anne stepped in, asking George about his football activities and gently steering the conversation away. But Carole had seen enough. Her protective instincts, honed over decades of raising children and running a successful business, were fully alert. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding or a difference in communication styles. It was deliberate, systematic, and completely unacceptable. After lunch, the family moved out to the garden terrace for coffee and afternoon tea. The October air was crisp but sunny, perfect for being outside. The children were allowed to explore the gardens under the careful watch of their protection officers, and Charlotte seemed to regain some of her usual cheer as she ran around with her brothers. Carole was chatting with Catherine about upcoming family plans when she noticed Charlotte walking toward the terrace on her own. The little girl was carrying a small bouquet of late-blooming flowers and looked excited to show them to the adults. "Look what I found," Charlotte called happily as she climbed the stone steps. "There are still roses blooming by the south wall." "How lovely, darling," Catherine said warmly. "Why don't you show everyone?" Charlotte smiled brightly and stepped toward the group, holding the delicate flowers carefully in her small hands. But before she could reach them, Camilla's voice cut sharply across the terrace. "Charlotte, stop right there!" The command froze the little girl instantly. "Look at the state of you. You're covered in dirt and your dress is torn. What will people think?" Carole looked at her granddaughter and saw only a child who had been playing outdoors. Exactly what children should do. Charlotte's dress had a small grass stain and her shoes were a bit muddy, but she was far from covered in dirt. And they weren't at a public event. They were at a private family gathering. "I'm sorry, Granny Camilla," Charlotte whispered, her excitement gone. "You were just thinking about yourself instead of how your appearance reflects on the family," Camilla continued, her voice carrying across the terrace. "A proper young lady doesn't run about like a wild thing, getting dirty and tearing her clothes. Perhaps you should go inside and have your nanny clean you up before you embarrass us further." Carole felt the words hit like a physical blow. She watched as Charlotte's face crumpled, tears threatening to fall from her bright blue eyes. The little girl's hands loosened around the flowers, which tumbled across the stone terrace. At that moment, Carole Middleton knew she had heard enough. Every instinct as a mother and grandmother screamed that this had gone too far. Her beloved granddaughter was being torn down by someone who should have been lifting her up. The ride back home. The ride back to the Middleton family home was quiet at first. Charlotte sat in the back seat between her parents while Carole drove, her mind still buzzing with everything that had just happened. She never imagined she would find herself confronting a member of the royal family, let alone the Queen Consort. But when she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Charlotte's calmer, more relaxed expression, she knew she had done the right thing. "Grandmama," Charlotte's small voice broke the silence. "Yes, sweetheart," Carole replied gently. "Was I really being bad today?" Carole carefully pulled the car over and turned to face her granddaughter. "Charlotte, listen to me very carefully. You are not being bad. You are being exactly what you are meant to be, a curious, enthusiastic, intelligent little girl. Never let anyone make you feel ashamed of those wonderful qualities." Catherine reached over and held her daughter's hand. "Grandmama is absolutely right. You were perfect today just as you always are. But Granny Camilla said—" Charlotte began. "Granny Camilla was wrong," William said firmly. "And that's not something we say lightly about any adult. But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes too. What she said to you today was a mistake, and it won't happen again." Charlotte nodded slowly, taking it all in. Children are remarkably perceptive, and even at her young age, she had sensed that something had been wrong. Having the adults around her confirm that her feelings were valid and protect her from further harm was exactly what she needed. The conversation that followed was crucial for both families. Catherine and William decided Charlotte would never attend private gatherings with Camilla unless one of them was present. They also agreed that any similar situation in the future would be addressed immediately rather than hoping it would sort itself out. Charles, to his credit, called Carole personally the next day. The conversation was awkward, but necessary. He acknowledged that the situation had been handled poorly and promised steps would be taken to prevent it from happening again. "Carole, I want you to know I deeply value your family's place in our lives," he said. "Charlotte is precious to all of us, and she should never be made to feel otherwise." Camilla herself never called. Whether it was pride, embarrassment, or simply refusing to admit she was wrong, Carole never knew. But her silence spoke volumes about her attitude toward the whole situation. In the weeks and months that followed, subtle but important changes became clear. Charlotte was never left alone with Camilla, and whenever they were in the same room, other family members stayed nearby and engaged with the young princess. Even more importantly, Charlotte began to blossom in ways that surprised everyone. The quiet tension that had lingered, her careful words, her hesitation to show excitement, slowly disappeared. She returned to being the bright, confident, and curious child she had always been at home and at school. Carole's relationship with her granddaughter grew even stronger after that day. Charlotte understood, even as a little girl, that her grandmother had stood up for her when she couldn't do it herself. Their bond deepened, built on love, respect, and trust. Word of Carole's actions reached the business world, even if few knew the details. People learned that she had confronted the queen consort herself to protect her granddaughter. Far from hurting her reputation, it only enhanced it. She was seen as someone who lived by her principles, no matter the personal cost. So, what do you think about Carole Middleton's reaction towards Queen Camilla? Did you think she acted wisely? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.